Good morning and welcome. We are on Wednesday, June 9. This is the AM session, and we are now ready to begin our annotative work for the day with Shakespeare's classic comedy, Midsummer Night's Dream. We will in a moment turn to Miss Laird and the reading annotative study of your packet. You need a blank sheet of paper in front of you now. You need today's date at the top of that blank sheet of paper, and you need to have your packet for Midsummer Night's Dream in front of you. Like we did with Red Badge of Courage, we will first look at the plot line of this story. We will then listen to the play performed for us while we read along. You should have a copy of Midsummer Night's Dream in front of you that Miss Laird has appropriated for you. And then finally, we will watch a performance of Midsummer Night's Dream, and then we will do our testing. And our goal, of course, is to have all of that done by July 3, right? That's our goal. Okay, we will see how it goes for us. Today, we will then work through the packet, and then we will begin actually study of the text itself, Midsummer Night's Dream. With that in mind, I want to go back to the notes as Miss Laird now is preparing to get ready to read. I want to go back to your notes of yesterday for just a second and remind you. There are 3 groups that you will be outlining for this play. And again, I recommend, watch my whiteboard, I recommend that you do something like the following, okay? Where you do this, and then above it you put 3 groups of Midsummer Night's Dream, okay? Then the first group will be what we will call the lovers. And there are 3 pairs. 1, 2, and 3. Okay? 3 pairs. 1 will be the king and his soon-to-be wife queen. Then we'll have the Helena and Hermia love triangle thing happening. The second group will be the fairies. Right? The fairies, which will involve Puck, Robin Goodfellow, it's the same guy, and again the king and queen fairies. And that's pretty much all you got to worry about there. The third group will be what we'll call the actors or the clowns. Okay? And of course the lead guy here is Bottom, although there's a few others as well. Okay? Now, this play is literally a dance between those 3 groups, where you're going to have different things happening at different times inside of that group, inside of each of those groups, and between those groups. So, for example, sometimes you're going to have the lovers and the fairies, and those 2 groups will be working together. Sometimes you'll have the fairies and the actors, or clowns, and sometimes those will be working together. At the very end of the play, guess what? All 3 groups are what? At the very end of the play, all 3 groups are together. Now, some of that is a little obscure, because you don't know the plot line yet, right? You really don't know much about the story. So now Miss Laird will be reading with you the plot line. While we read, simple question. Each character belongs in a group. What group does that character belong in? And I'll write it down. Got me? And by the time I'm done, I should be able to make a little map of this play in my mind so that I know exactly what's going on. If you know what's going on, this is a pretty fun play to watch and enjoy. Okay? Any questions before Miss Laird begins? You should be on page, did I say this right, 2 of your packet, the story. That's where you should be right now. Page 2, all right, the story. And Miss Laird will now begin. She's just like we did before. She's just going to read, and we're going to work through it.
Okay. The story. Theseus, the Duke of Athens, was to be married in 4 days to Hippolyta, Queen of the Amazons, and he ordered his master of revels to prepare suitable entertainment for the nuptials. But other lovers of ancient Athens were not so happy as their ruler. Hermia, in love with Lysander, was loved also by Demetrius, who had her father's permission to marry her. When she refused his suit, Demetrius took his case to Theseus and demanded that the law be invoked. Theseus upheld the father, which meant that Hermia must marry Demetrius, be placed in a nunnery, or be put to death. Hermia swore that she would enter a convent before she would consent to become Demetrius' bride. So in this paragraph, we were talking about the lovers. We were introduced to Theseus and Hippolyta. That's the king and queen. Queen of the Amazons, he's the Duke of Athens. They're going to have a big party for the wedding. The master of revelers, the master of ceremonies, was told to go out and find entertainment. We've been introduced to 3 of the other lovers. Hermia is loved both by Demetrius and Lysander, but she loves Lysander. Anybody confused yet?
It's a convent.
A convent is where nuns live. It's Catholic. Or, since we're in ancient Athens, it would be like a house where a bunch of virgin priestesses live. You know what I mean? So we've got Hermia is loved by the 2 guys. The one who really wants to marry her asked permission from her father. He gave it, but she's refusing. So she said she would rather live in a nunnery than have to marry Demetrius. Second paragraph. Lysander plotted with Hermia to steal her away from Athens, take her to the home of his aunt, and there marry her. They were to meet the following night in the woods outside the city. Hermia confided the plan to her good friend Helena. Demetrius had formerly been betrothed to Helena, and although he had switched his love to Hermia, he was still desperately loved by the scorned Helena. Helena, willing to do anything to gain even the smile from Demetrius, told him of his rival's plan to elope with Hermia. So in this paragraph, they discuss that Hermia confided in her friend Helena, who's got the hots for Demetrius, the one who Hermia does not want to marry but is being forced to marry. So to get in his good graces, she tells him that Hermia is going to run away with Lysander. Unknown to any of the 4 young people, there were to be others in the same woods on the appointed night, Midsummer Eve. A guild of Athenian laborers was to meet there to practice a play the members hoped to present in honor of Theseus and Hippolyta's wedding. The fairies also held their midnight revels in the woods. Oberon, king of the fairies, desired for his page a little Indian prince, but Oberon's queen, Titania, had the boy. Loving him like a son, she refused to give him up to her husband. In order to force Titania to do his bidding, Oberon ordered his mischievous page called Puck, or Robin Goodfellow, to secure the juice of love in idleness, a purple flower once hit by Cupid's dart. This juice, when placed in the eyes of anyone sleeping, caused that person to fall in love with the first creature seen on awakening. Oberon planned with the first creature seen on awakening. Oberon planned to drop some of the juice in Titania's eyes, then refused to lift the charm until she gave him the boy. So we've got the 3 groups in the woods. The second group we were introduced to are the actors that are planning to do a play in honor of the wedding. Now we're introduced to the fairies, whose story is a little bit more complicated. There is an argument going on between King Oberon and his wife Titania over a little Indian boy. The king wants the little boy. The queen does not want to give him up because she loves him like a son. So the king of the fairies plans to play a trick on his wife by placing this love potion on her eyes and making her fall in love with whoever she wakes up and sees. And he won't lift the spell until she gives him what he wants, which is the little Indian boy. While Puck was on his errand, Demetrius and Helena entered the woods. Making himself invisible, Oberon heard Helena plead her love for Demetrius and heard the young man scorn and berate her. They had come to the woods to find the fleeing lovers, Lysander and Hermia. Oberon, pitying Helena, determined to aid her. When Puck returned with the juice, Oberon ordered him to find the Athenian and place some of the juice in his eyes so that he would love the girl who doted on him. So, in the woods, the king of the fairies overhears Helena, the one who Demetrius dumped to get married to Hermia. She's telling him how much she loves him, and he's like, no, I'm in love with Hermia. I want to marry Hermia. So her feelings are hurt. Oberon plans to use this love potion on Demetrius to make him love Helena to help her out. And he tells Puck to do this, but how many Athenians are there out in the woods? There's two men out there. It's pretty complicated. So you've got two Athenians out there. You have Lysander and you have Demetrius. What do you guys think Puck's going to do? Any ideas?
I think he's gonna mistake Lysander for Demetrius.
Yes. Puck went to do as he was ordered while Oberon squeezed the juice of the flower into the eyes of Titania as she slept. But Puck, coming upon Lysander and Hermia as they slept in the woods, mistook Lysander's Athenian dress for that of Demetrius and poured the charmed juice into Lysander's eyes. Lysander was awakened by Helena, who had been abandoned deep in the woods by Demetrius. The charm worked perfectly. Lysander fell in love with Helena. The poor girl, thinking that he was mocking her with his ardent protestations of love, begged him to stop his teasing and return to the sleeping Hermia. But Lysander, pursuing Helena, left Hermia alone in the forest. When she awakened, she feared that Lysander had been killed, for she believed that he would never have deserted her otherwise. So you were right. He did put the potion on Lysander's eyes. Hermia was lost and woke him up because she wanted help. She was lost in the woods. Demetrius had ran off.
He must have made a lot of this potion.
It was just, you just have to put a little touch on the eyes.
No, but she just to put it on his eyes in the first place. She only would have made it a little bit.
So at this point, Lysander is no longer in love with Hermia. He's now chasing Helena. What was that? It gets confusing. Helena was loved by both the guys. Now the guy that she loves is chasing. Now you got me confused.
You got me confused.
Hermia. Helena is being chased by Lysander. Hermia is chasing Lysander, and Demetrius is chasing Hermia.
So wait, who's choosing?
It's intentionally confusing.
I get
The
it.
easy way to understand it is to write it down on your notes and then
I-
draw little arrows back and forth. That's the easiest way to learn it.
Don't
guys.
see a lot of writing going
Okay, so
on.
both the guys like.
So if you let's
Yeah.
let's start out with Helena, and write the name Helena down.
Okay.
I'm just gonna do this on the back.
Helena loves Demetrius, so draw an arrow there. Demetrius loves Hermia. He dumped Helena.
Yeah.
Hermia is running off with Lysander. So draw an arrow from Hermia to Lysander. And now that Puck has put this potion on Lysander, he's in love with Helena. So it's like a full circle.
It's like middle school, huh?
I don't think middle school.
It's like drama, drama, drama. Middle school drama, drama.
Titania, the queen of the fairies, in the meantime, awakened to a strange sight. The laborers practicing for their play had paused not far from the sleeping fairy queen. Bottom, the comical but stupid weaver who was to play the leading role, became the butt of another of Puck's jokes. The prankster clapped an ass's head over Bottom's own foolish pate and led the poor fool to a merry chase until the weaver was at the spot where Titania lay sleeping. Thus, when she awakened, she looked at Bottom, still wearing the head of an ass. She fell instantly in love with him and ordered the fairies to tend to his every want. This turn pleased Oberon mightily. When he learned of the mistake Puck had made in placing the juice in Lysander's eyes, however, he tried to right the wrong by placing love juice also in Demetrius's eyes, and he ordered Puck to have Helena close by when Demetrius awakened. His act made both girls unhappy and forlorn. When Demetrius, who she knew hated her, also began to make love to her, Helena thought that both men were taunting and ridiculing her. And poor Hermia, encountering Lysander, could not understand why he tried to drive her away, all this time protesting that he loved only Helena.
Broke things worse.
So let's go back to Titania and what Bottom did. Bottom was practicing with the rest of the actors, and Puck sits there and observes and wants to play a joke. So he puts a donkey's head on Bottom. So under the actors, you need to be putting that Bottom, one of the main actor, now has a donkey's head. Puck leads Bottom to where the Queen of the Fairies is sleeping. And she wakes up, and the first person she sees is Bottom with the donkey's head. So she has all of her attendants, all of her little fairies doing anything possible to make Bottom happy. Meanwhile, he does not know that he has a donkey's head. And he doesn't understand why the Queen is making love to him and giving him his every need.
So the queen likes lava?
Right, so
Because of the magic.
the magic potion that Puck put on her eyes while she was asleep, now she's in love with Bottom.
So is Puck just like a regular fairy that's like...
Pretty much like a trouble.
Puck's a
Well, I know, but
troublemaker.
what is he to the queen? Is he nothing? He's just a
He's the servant of the King of the Fairies.
Okay.
Yeah, he's his page. So the King of the Fairies sees that Puck made a mistake, and he goes and puts the love potion on Demetrius's eyes to make sure that when he wakes up, he falls in love with Helena. So now you're going to draw an arrow from Demetrius to Helena.
I've got the entire thing on the back of it.
That's what they wanted in the first place.
Right, but because nobody liked Helena to begin with, and now both the guys are chasing her, she's all frustrated and running away from both of them because she knows that Demetrius doesn't want anything to do with her. She doesn't she thinks Lysander's making fun of her, so she's running away from both of them. So now both guys are in love with Helena. Nobody's in love
Oberon is
with
the king, right?
Hermia. What?
Oberon is the king.
Oberon is the king of the fairies.
This is such a blow in my mind.
I'm managing to put some
This is too complicated.
Hey,
Just keep
remember, once you start reading the play, you get a little better understanding. Once you watch this on stage,
Yeah.
trust me, it is absolutely hilarious. You got different people in love with different people. Love is, what is the line? The course of true love never did run smooth,
You
remember?
realize
So-
it is 8:30 in the morning.
Ah,
There's
8:30.
no love of Helena anymore.
No. Lysander is no longer in love with Hermia.
No one
Both
loves-
guys are in love with Helena. So Hermia, who's this really hot chick who in the beginning
No
all the
one
guys
loves
were chasing
Hermia.
her. Right, nobody wants Hermia, who in the beginning is, she's super gorgeous, all the guys love her, now nobody wants her. So she's chasing around Lysander, who initially she ran away with, and because of Puck, he's chasing around Helena.
I think this means
So
like,
at first, both Lysander and Demetrius loved
Hermia.
Hermia, and now they like Helena because of the potion.
Right.
we need to put this
There
on
you
the
go.
board or something.
That's
Because
you're
it's
supposed to be
confusing.
writing it down.
Writing it down. But
Again, Oberon tried to set matters straight. He ordered Puck to lead the two men in circles until weariness forced them to lie down and go to sleep. Then a potion to remove the charm and make the whole affair seem like a dream was to be placed on Lysander's eyes. Afterward, he would again love Hermia, and all the young people would be united in proper pairs. Titania, too, was to have the charm removed. For Oberon had taunted her about loving an ass until she had given up the prince to him. But Puck obeyed the orders and placed the potion on Lysander's eyes. So the King of the Fairies, seeing that Puck messed everything up, has him basically sending these two guys running around in circles in the forest until they pass out. So that they're not going to put the potion on Demetrius' eyes. He's supposed to put it on Lysander's eyes to remove the spell so that he once again loves Hermia. And meanwhile, the King of the Fairies has been teasing his wife for loving an ass. The four lovers were awakened by Theseus, Hippolyta, and Hermia's father, who had gone into the woods to watch Theseus's hounds perform. Lysander again loved Hermia, and Demetrius still loved Helena, for the love juice remained in his eyes. Hermia's father persisted in his demand that his daughter marry Demetrius, but since that young man no longer wanted her, and all four were happy with their partners, he ceased to oppose Lysander's suit. Theseus gave them permission to marry on the day set for his own wedding to Hippolyta. So they finally get it right. Now Lysander once again loves Hermia. Demetrius loves Helena. They're discovered by Theseus the king and his soon-to-be wife Hippolyta and Hermia's father.
Is Hana selling like a Demetrius?
Yes. Helena's always loved Demetrius. The girls didn't have any spells put on them.
Which is fairly amazing.
Titania, also awakened like the others, thought that she had been dreaming. Puck removed the ass's head from bottom, and that poor bewildered weaver made his way back to Athens, reaching there just in time to save the play from ruin, for he was to play Pyramus, the hero. The master of the revels tried to dissuade Theseus from choosing the laborer's play for the wedding night. Theseus, however, was intrigued by a play that was announced as both tedious and brief, as well as merry and tragic. So Bottom and his troupe presented Pyramus and Thisbe, much to the merriment of all the guests. Okay, so the potion is put on the Queen of the Fairies while she's asleep, so that when she wakes up, she's no longer in love with Bottom. Writing.
So everything's back to normal.
Everything's back to normal. Now it's time for the wedding. Plus, Theseus has given permission for the couples also to get married at his wedding, too. So we're going to have a triple wedding. And then the Master of Revelers, the one who's in charge of getting all the performances and entertainment for the wedding, is presented with Pyramus and Thisbe, which is told that it's awful. It's an awful performance. You don't want to see it. He was intrigued because it was announced as both tedious and brief, as well as merry and tragic. So Bottom's acting group gets to perform their play for the king and queen at their wedding. After the play, all the bridal couples retired to their suites, and Oberon and Titania sang a fairy song over them, promising that they and all their children would be blessed. The end.
What a tangled web he weaves.
You want to go ahead and go through the characters
Let's
then?
do it. Now, see, that's the storyline. Hey, by the way, if you're a little bit lost still, that's okay. Believe it or not, you're supposed to be kind of lost. Shakespeare wants you to go, huh? That's the point of the play, okay? But you'll figure it out much better as you now start to work through the characters. I think Mr. Bolts has given us a very, very good suggestion. On your paper, now while you work through characters, draw a little map, starting with the name of the people. Now you know the name of the four lovers is what? So see, I would start with a blank sheet of paper here. Four lovers, write their names down, and then as we go through these characters, you'll start to get a sense of who is with who at what point in the play. Like I said, it's kind of like 8th grade middle school.
So, the four lovers are Demetrius, Lysander, Hermia, and Helena.
Very
Yes.
impressive. Well done,
job.
Vigil.
And you said you were confused.
I am confused.
2 H's for the 2 girls, right? And then you've got Lysander and Demetrius as the 2 guys. You will laugh at some point in the future that this plot line was confusing to you. Trust me, you will laugh about that. Because for you, it'll be so simple.
What I recommend now is you've got your 3 sections. As I start going through and reading the characters, list their names like you have separated, and just put like a line or 2. One of the lovers, he's, the first one I'm going to talk about is Theseus. He's the Duke of Athens, a wise, temperate ruler. Although he mistrusts the fantasy and imagination of lunatics, lovers, and poets, He can perceive with good humor the love and duty inspiring the abortive dramatic effects of his subjects, and he tries to teach his bride and queen, Hippolyta, the value of their good intentions. So Theseus, one of the lovers, Duke of Athens. Hippolyta, Theseus's bride, queen of the Amazons, the maiden warriors whom he has conquered. She is a woman of regal dignity, less willing than her lord to be tolerant of the faults of Peter Quince's play, although she is more ready than he to believe the lover's description of their night in the forest. Hippolyta should be the second one you list under the lovers.
Isn't Theseus Hermia's dad?
No.
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 Okay.
Wait,
Then who's
Theseus and
Hermia's-
Hippolyta are the king and queen. They're our
Oh,
first two
okay.
set.
Yeah, they're the ones that are getting married.
This is the big wedding. This is their wedding.
How do you spell
What's
Hippolyta's
the
name?
Hippolyta is spelled Hypp.
Okay, because it was like blacked
It's
out.
cut off. Yeah. Hippollyta. Titania, the imperious queen of the fairies, she feuds with her husband Oberon over her little changeling boy, whom the king wants as his page. Enchanted by Oberon's flower, love and idleness, she becomes enamored of Bottom the Weaver and his ass's head and dotes on him until her husband takes pity on her and frees her from the spell. She is quickly reconciled with him, and they join in blessing the marriage of Theseus and Hippolyta, their favorites among mortals. Titania, queen of the fairies,
so put her
She's
under
the-
fairies?
she's under the fairies. She falls in love with Bottom the ass, the actor.
Who's Oberon on it?
Oberon will be under the fairies. He's the king of the fairies.
And then who's
We'll get there.
No,
I know.
who's Hippolyta's
husband?
Oberon.
Who?
Oberon. Oberon and Titania are the king and queen of the fairies.
Okay. No, who's
Perseus-
Hippolyta?
Yeah, the lover. Theseus.
Hippolyta.
That's Theseus' wife.
Theseus?
Yeah.
Hippolyta
The first two
is
are couples.
Theseus's wife, queen of the Amazons. See, Shayla's got it.
Not confusing.
Oberon, king of the fairies, who gleefully plots with Puck to cast a spell on the fairy queen and take away her changeling. Once he has stolen the child, he repents his mischief and frees Titania from her ridiculous dotage. He teases her for her fondness for Theseus and is in return forced to confess his own affection for Hippolyta. Oberon, king of the fairies, he's the one who sends Puck to go get this potion to get back at his wife. And they're arguing over a little changeling boy. Puck, the merry mischievous Robin Goodfellow, so he should be listed under fairies, of English folk legend and Oberon's servant, he brings about the confusion of the young Athenians in Midsummer's Eve, and as he tries to carry out Oberon's wishes. The king has taken pity on Helena and hopes to turn Demetrius' scorn for her into love. Puck simply enchants the first Athenian he sees, Lysander, and with great, I don't know what that's going to be, watches the confusion which follows. Lord, what fools these mortals be. So, Puck is a fairy. He's the servant of the king. He's the one who's going around and putting the potion on everybody's eyes. He's also the one that turns Bottom into an ass. Hermia, so this is our third lover. You should have her listed. A bright, bold young Athenian maiden, she defies her father and flees into the Athenian wood to elope with her beloved Lysander. She shows herself a small spitfire when she finds Demetrius and Lysander, through Puck's machinations, suddenly rivaling each other for Helena's affection rather than hers. So Hermia is the one in the beginning that both guys are in love with. But she's in love with Lysander.
Is Theseus her dad?
Theseus is the king.
Yeah, I know that. Who's her dad?
We haven't been introduced to her dad yet.
Oh, okay. Is it?
Her dad is a nobleman. He lives in Athens. He goes to Theseus, and Theseus makes the decision that Hermia is going to have to marry Demetrius. because her father demands it. But we haven't actually met him in the introductions yet.
Is Theseus' son.
Theseus and Hippolyta don't have any children. They haven't gotten married yet. Okay. Helena, a maiden who mournfully follows Demetrius, spaniel-like in spite of the scorn with which she repulses her affection, when she suddenly finds both Demetrius and Lysander at her feet, she can only believe that they are teasing her. Helena is our second girl of the lovers. In the beginning, nobody wants Helena. But after Puck puts the potion on the wrong guy, they both end up chasing her. Demetrius, a rather fickle Athenian youth, he deserts his first love, Helena, to win the approval of Hermia's father for marriage with her, but he cannot win Hermia himself. His affections are returned by Oberon's herb to Helena, and he is wed to her on his duke's marriage day. So Demetrius is loved by Helena. He wants Hermia. He gets permission to marry Hermia from her father. Lysander, Hermia's sweetheart who plans their elopement to escape Theseus' decree that the girl must follow her father's will or enter a nunnery, he brashly argues with Demetrius, first over Hermia, then over Helena, before he is happily wed to his first love. So meanwhile, with all the different potions and mix-ups, these guys are duking it out in the woods the whole time over both girls. So Lysander is in love with Hermia, but because of Bottom's spell, he ends up being in love with
Not
Helena.
bottoms.
What was that?
Not bottoms. Pucks.
Pucks. Yep.
I'm following you better than this game.
I know. Now we're at Bottom. Nick Bottom, a good-natured craftsman and weaver, he is so enthralled by the prospect of Quince's play, Pyramus and Thisbe, that he longs to play all the other parts in addition to his assigned role of the hero. He's supremely complacent as Titania's paramour and takes for granted the service of the fairies, who scratch the ass's ears placed on his head by Puck. He marvels at his most rare vision after his release from the fairy spell. So, Bottom's just a regular guy. He's a weaver. So what do you guys think that means?
He weaves.
What does he weave?
Baskets.
Baskets. Yeah. So he's just a regular guy. His friend wrote a play, and maybe deep down he's always had this desire to be an actor. So when they start doing the play, he wants to do all of the roles on top of playing the lead role. He's kind of a ridiculous guy, and that's one of the reasons why Puck picks him. Peter Quince, a carpenter, director of the infamous play of tragical mirth presented in honor of Theseus' wedding, completely well-meaning, he illustrates as he mingles his prologue the love and tongue-tied simplicity of which Theseus speaks. So Peter Quince is Nick Bottom's friend. He's the one who wrote the play. Snug, a joiner, Snout, a tinker, Flute, a bellows maker, and Starveling, a tailor, the other craftsmen actors who portray respectively Lion, Wall, Thisbe, and Moonshine.
There's an actor to portray a wall.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
It's not even low.
Aegeus is Hermia's father. He is determined that his daughter shall marry Demetrius, not Lysander, whom she loves.
Where are we at?
Philostrates is Theseus' master of revels, and Peas Blossom, Cobweb, Moth, and Mustard Seed are Titania's fairy attendants who wait on Bottom.
I can't see those poor fairies when they saw that she was running down in the lake.
Well, the fairies just did what their queen told them to
I know,
do.
but I'm pretty sure that in the back of their minds they're like, what in the world?
Yeah, they probably were. Do you want me to go through the story one more time? Or should we go ahead and start listening?
I think we're ready to start. Let me make a few comments as Ms. Laird gets set up for the now study reading of the play. Let's make some summative comments, can we? At this point, now, if you'll look at my whiteboard for a second, you'll understand why I recommended this. Right? Do you understand?
I did that.
Okay? So, you've got some sense of what we're going to use an academic term here, of schemata. In other words, a map. And this play requires a certain kind of map. Now, I'll go back to what I said before. This is a very controversial play for a number of reasons. This is the play of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I wasn't kidding when I said that. I was dead up serious about that. The play is very controversial for its day. Why? Think of it. You got young kids who go against the parents' will, the king's will, run off to the woods and hanky-panky. Right? I mean, that's simple, isn't it? You've got in the woods all kinds of confusion that happens because, why? People are doing dope. Right? This stuff on the eyes, this drug, causes all kinds of problems. It didn't take Shakespeare's audience very long to figure out that Shakespeare was playing symbolism games, right? That is to say, when people, kids especially, start making up their own minds about who they're supposed to like, then all kinds of bad things happen. Think about what Romeo and Juliet, the play, really is about. All of you have studied that play, right? Now, stay with me for a second and I'll help you to think about this. This play is radical, Romeo and Juliet, and here's why. At the beginning of the play, we meet a young man named Paris who is talking to the father of Juliet. He wants to, are you ready for this? He wants to marry the 13-year-old girl. Juliet's father says, blows the minds of students when they realize what he's saying. Juliet's dad says, why don't you meet her first, get to know her, and then you can decide whether you want to marry her? Now, most students will say, no, duh. But you don't understand. In Shakespeare's day, you didn't go to the party, see the girl across the room, like her, go up to her, say, I want to get to know you, and then get married. That wasn't the way it worked. All marriages are arranged marriages. Dude, Paris has never even seen Juliet, and he wants to marry her. Juliet's dad says, why don't you at least meet her? Paris could care less about meeting Juliet. He wants to marry her. How come?
Money.
It's a politics thing. It's power. It's money. The Capulets are they have their own spot at the country club, if you will. Does that make sense? Right? This play opens very similarly. You have a father who will say about his daughter, Hermia, I want her to marry who? He wants her to marry Demetrius. You will marry Demetrius. The only problem is that, against her father's wishes, she's already fallen in love. She's fallen in love with who? With Lysander. Lysander's in the room. Dude, at the beginning of this play, this is hilarious. Lysander is actually standing there. Demetrius is standing right next to him. The father is standing next to his daughter. And he says, she is with the wrong guy. She will marry, or I'm going to kill her. I'm going to kill her. If she doesn't do what I tell her to do, I'm going to kill her. But this shouldn't shock you. Later in the play, Romeo and Juliet, when Juliet's dad's trying to make her happy, he decides to go ahead and give Paris to her. The only problem is, Juliet already got married and slept that night with Romeo. She can't turn around and marry Paris. And so when dad and mom come in and go, hey, surprise, great news, you're going to get to marry Paris, Juliet's like, I'll marry Paris when I'm dead or Romeo is dead. Which, of course, just seems to be an exaggeration. They're like, what are you talking about? Of course you're going to marry. She's like, no, I can't marry. But she can't tell him why. Do you remember what Juliet's daddy does? He throws a serious fit. He throws a serious fit, and he says, I will throw you out into the street, which means you'll die. The father, he's ready to kill his own daughter because she doesn't want to marry the guy he wants her to marry. So, what is it that in the end Hermia and Lysander decide to do? They're going to run away. Totally against the law. They are breaking the law. When they run away, they go to the woods. In the woods, all kinds of funny stuff happens. Of course, in the meantime, every girl's got a best friend, right? So you've got, Hermia's got Helena, and Helena is kind of like the troublemaker. She causes problems in the end, right? In the end, Demetrius, he's a player. He used to like, right, Helena, not anymore. Now he's into Hermia, right? And so both of them are into Hermia until the dope comes in. Then, immediately, with a little bit of dope, they totally change their mind. But this shouldn't shock us either. When the play Romeo and Juliet opens, listen to what I'm about to say, and some of you will go, oh yeah. When the play Romeo and Juliet opens, the first time we see Romeo, what is he doing? This is what he's doing. Why? Why is Romeo doing this? Winlock, do you remember? Why is Romeo doing this? Stay with me, Winlock, and you'll understand this better. This is Romeo, first time. My life sucks. My life sucks. Why? He's in love with a girl. Now the assumption is he's in love with who? What's the name of the play? Romeo and Juliet. The assumption is he's in love with Juliet. Are you ready for this? Dude, he's never seen Juliet. He doesn't even know she exists. He's in love with a girl named Rosaline who won't return his texts. He goes to the party that night to see Rosaline. The girl, he says, if he doesn't get her, he's going to kill himself. At the party, he sees Juliet for the first time. Totally forgets about Rosaline, and later that night asks Juliet to marry him. That's guys for you. That's guys for you. They're totally in love, and then they're totally not in love. They're totally into a girl, then they're totally not into the girl. They are flippant, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This play is not a tragedy, it's a comedy. So it's going to make fun of that fact, that guys are constantly changing their minds. They think they want one girl, then it's funny, they want the girl till they get the girl. Then they don't want the girl anymore, they want a differenter girl. Right? See how that game is going to get played. So, as we go into this play, understanding that little bit of background will help us. Again, the course of true love never did run smooth. I need all handhelds put away. Put it away so you can't see it. I need, please, your books open now. I want to make a couple of comments about your book real quick. Go ahead and open it to the first page. We are on page 20. Go there now. The opening stuff, introduction stuff, we won't read. Now, hello? Understand how to read this book. Some of you have not looked at a book like this before. Understand, you're on page 20. Understand how to read this book. Notice that on page 20, it says Act 1, Scene 1. By the way, everyone look at me for a second. Shakespeare wrote 5 acts for each play. 5 acts. Each act is divided up into scenes. Those scenes are divided up into lines. So we have a nomenclature, a code language, a way to talk about these plays. So Drake, if I say Romeo and Juliet 3, 2, 1 through 5, what do I mean? Romeo and Juliet 3 means what? Act 3. 2 means what? Scene 2. 1 through 5 means what? Lines 1 through 5. Now when you are looking at page 20 and 21 as Mr. Winlock is, dude, it says Act 1, Scene 1 on one page, and then on 21 it says Act 1, Scene 1 as well. What is going on there? This is a special, right, this is a special volume that will give you the actual words, right, on page 20. And then on page 21, it will give you easy words to understand. So while you're reading with Miss Laird, you want to be reading on the left-hand side. Did I say that right, Miss Laird? On the left-hand side, right? But when she pauses, if she asks you, okay, dude, what's going on? If you don't understand, you look back and you start reading on the right-hand side. Do you got me? To try and put it together. So in your notes right now, new notes, it should say Midsummer Night's Dream, Act 1, Scene 1. Act 1, Scene 1. Now again, these are notes that you're handing in to me today to prove that you were in session with me and you were actually following with Miss Laird. All right? Act 1, Scene 1, Midsummer Night's Dream, go. We are reading on the left-hand side, that's Shakespeare. Now, obviously, the other side is easier to understand, but what I would say about this is you're all getting ready to study Shakespeare with me your senior year, where we will study at least 2 plays, more like 4. If you know how to read Shakespeare, it's a whole lot funner and easier to do it. So here we go. Act 1, Scene 1, Line 1. We'll read for a little bit, then we'll pause, then we'll write some stuff down. We got about a half an hour work here, then we go to break, all right? So let's get really focused. Hey guys, I got to get you through this so I can show you the film performance of this, all right? Trust me, you'll like it. You'll love the film of this, all right? It's a great film. All right, here we go.
Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare.
Fanfare.
I do not know. Okay.
Now, fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on apace. 4 happy days bring in another moon. Oh, methinks how slow this old moon wanes. She lingers my desires, like to a stepdame or a dowager, long withering out a young man's revenue.
4 days will quickly steep themselves in night.